Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Welcome to the Sunday map update. As you can see, I'm still in the kitchen environment, so we're gonna have to get through it together while I'm still traveling and not in my studio. I'm sorry for my last video not being there, but I'm truly trying to do as much videos as I can. Let's talk about the front line and what is happening there, because Russians are not looking that hot, specifically on Pokrovsk axis. Now, the bunny ears that were here a while ago around Kucherev Yar, where I made videos talking about how Russian advances in this area could really be bad for Ukrainians, now the situation looks a lot better. And specifically, situation looks much worse for Russians right over here at the base of their incursion. If we zoom in just a little bit, you will see that Ukrainians have pushed in a little bit from this side, and let me maybe just use the blue one for Ukrainians so we don't get confused. So Ukrainians pushed from this side and pushed from this side, and additionally they pushed from this side, trying to undercut the base itself of the Russian move northwards. They already had certain success at the north of the incursion right over here, where they liberated certain settlements, but now Ukrainians have been pushing very extensively, and they have been creating a lot of pressure on Russians around these points. However, what we must remember is that this is quickly becoming Russian main axis of attacks. Russian logic of war is very simple. If they took something, then they have no real ability to give it back to Ukrainians, so to say. And this is how their commanders work. Not because there is some kind of honor or anything. No, just because like you get smacked on the head if you lose the territory, but you don't get smacked on the head if you lose men. So that's why Russians is like, okay, Ukrainians are advancing. That means we just need to throw in more men for the grinder. And I want to be very precise and clear here. It's not easy for Ukrainians. The fighting here is still pretty hard. But the fact of the matter is that over the week, we see Ukrainians digging in deeper into the Russian positions in the area, rather the other way around. There's also okay news coming from the southern direction. Now, here we need to understand that Ukrainians right now are defending, and Russians are putting a lot of effort in the southern area right over here to put towards Kotline, Zvirove over here, and also Udachne. So there is right now a lot of pressure. Russians really want to move in this area, and they want to cut this main supply road for Ukrainians so they cannot send supplies to Pokrovsk via this highway. However, over the week, no additional advances from Russians were noted. Beyond that, Ukrainians are reporting that they are having moderate success, but I would put it in a category of there's just a little bit more expanded gray area. So nothing that Ukrainians actually truly took back from Russians. However, the fact that the whole week passed and Russians really put a lot of effort into this area, for me, is pretty good news all the way. As always, in the southern direction, you see a lot of these weird tentacles appearing. I've explained already last time that there was certain limits to this area where specifically Russians want to go, and the area that they want to get to is this one. But even before getting there, it's going to be a bit problem for Russians, specifically around forests, and whether or not they will be able to move up this river at all and get past it. It's a difficult area for now for Russians, so all of the advances are marginal in this area. That's why you should not panic if you see them expanding. However, what I want to put attention for is the nature of these tentacles. This again underscores the difficulty of the modern front line in Russian-Ukrainian war right now. The tentacles here, they are colored red, but they might not be fully colored red. It might be just some Russian units just interjecting themselves in one direction, but then just a couple tens of meters to the north, it might be Ukrainians in their positions. So as I said, like there could have been just like a huge gray area that is colored all along the front line. However, as you can see, it's a lot more complicated, and frontline maps are not the same usability as it was just even a year and a half ago, when there was more or less, but at least, you know, detected and clear trench lines. It's a lot more mix and mash from now on. It's worth noting that there are still reports that Russians are accumulating around Pokrovsk. Some people are expecting that these forces will be coming in soon, though I also hear some other reports that while there are certain accumulations, that some parts of these accumulations are already being sent towards the directions. And some people are also reporting, and by people I mean like experts and people that follow movements of every specific unit on the front line, and I'm trying to summarize it here, is that they're talking about that potentially Russians are looking for some of their frontline units to try to make a break for it somewhere in the front line, and then they want to push through that breakthrough in the front line. However, no major breaks are happening right now at the front, and this week, to be honest, went in relatively, I don't want to say uneventful, because there are certain very negative events, but it's definitely did not have any major catastrophes for Ukrainians or anything like that. The major problems that are starting to appear and have been noted is actually to the north around Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. This is kind of the main center of the operations in the Donbass area. This is the heart and this is the bastion which Russia is going to have huge trouble cracking. But more than that, what started appearing here is that people started stating that this road towards Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, this highway over here, unfortunately, as the Russians were moving towards Liman and getting into this area around here already, they're able to launch some longer distance FPV drone to already strike the targets in this area. We saw some very unfortunate videos of Russians just blowing up civilians. So Russians don't care what kind of vehicle drives along this road. It can be civilian, it can be military, but the point of the matter is that this road stopped being a safe road anymore. And now this area is already being advised for all of the volunteers and non-military operations to potentially not take this road. Another worrying situation occurred this week around Kupiansk. And I gotta say, I got notice for it relatively early, so you can say not right as they happened, but pretty far away early. I didn't report because there wasn't really any public source talking about this, but Russians executed another pipeline operation. They were able to get into some of the positions around the north of Pokrovsk. Now, some channels have been reporting that it's like half of the city that is captured. No, it's not the case. But definitely there is a little bit more problems right now north of Pokrovsk. Russians have been bragging about this, showing the footage of them moving through the pipeline and then appearing behind the Ukrainian positions. Ukrainians are now claiming that it is now under control, this exit from the pipeline, which could technically suggest that Ukrainians have been have reestablished the positions that were taken previously by the Russians. But also I know that there is a lot of gray area right now in there, so potentially it was just Ukrainian drones that are in control of the exit from this pipeline, which doesn't fully state that there is a control. It's the problem with some of the Ukrainian official messaging. They will state that, for example, they are fully in control of a settlement and they have presence in the settlement right up until the last house of the settlement. You know, like for us to kind of have a general perspective on the front line, we need to be just a little bit more realistic than just some of the official messaging coming from the command. Not that it is wrong. Like, I mean, if there is at least one house controlled in a settlement, then technically statement, we still have presence in the settlement, is true. It's just, you know, like, I cannot say it to you. And finally, we have some additional news coming from the Sumy area. Here, Ukrainians have been additionally pressuring Russians, and it is now being claimed that Ukrainians have advanced around the area of Novomykolaivka right over here. and in general they're also pressuring Konstantinivka right over here. So Sumy, with Russians pulling out, and obviously Ukrainians have been pulling some of the units from the area as well. They don't have as much presence, but even the forces that are there in the area are not allowing Russians to expand this zone of operation, and they're also taking back the land from the occupiers. All in all, it was a pretty okay week for Ukrainians, despite some of the hiccups, despite the sensationalist propaganda operation with the Russian pipeline. But in general, Ukrainians doing great job where it matters, specifically around Pokrovsk, which is big, juicy targets that Russians would really want to get into their summer campaign record somehow. But the summer campaign is like, the summer is over and the campaign is very quickly coming to an end. Just today, at least in the western part of Ukraine, there was already pretty extensive rain, and we would expect a lot more of those to come. The leaves will gonna fall off soon, so there will be no hiding from the drones anymore. In any case, trust in Ukrainian armed forces, support the Ukrainian armed forces. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you next time.